everyone, it's Cass. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do my March wrap-up. March ended up being a weird reading month for me, and as I keep watching other people's wrap-ups for March, I think March was just kind of like a weird month for everybody. So it doesn't make me feel as bad. I did end up reading 6 books for the month of March. I did DNF one of these, and then I had a 3-star read, a 3.5-star read, and 3 4-star reads. No 5-star reads for this month. One of the books was from a repeat author, and then the rest of the 5 books that I read were all brand new to me authors. So there's a lot of good things to be able to unpackage from authors that I've just never experienced before. So that was kind of fun. The reason why March was so weird, I think, I'm not gonna call it a reading slump, I'm gonna call it a reading hangover. Like, I was still a little bit hungover from reading The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. You'll notice that I haven't even put up my review of that yet because I'm just still like, I don't know if I can like fully wrap that book up yet. It's just, there was so much and so little, but there's also a lot to dissect. So let's get to it. The first book that I did end up reading for the month of March, this is I Hear Your Voice, written by Young Ha Kim, and it's translated by Cress. This was book number 2 for the Around the World in 1000 Pages book club, hosted by Russell from Ink and Paper blog. Now, I was really excited for this book because it takes place in South Korea. It's by a South Korean author. It's about 2 young men, 2 young boys, who grew up on the streets of Seoul. One of them was homeless, one of them did have a family life that he ended up leaving, and they joined a motorcycle gang. There's just a lot that sounded really appealing about this book at first, but this was the book that I did DNF. This book was separated into 6 parts, 6 or 5 parts, and I did DNF it in section 2. Part number 1, just extremely well-written prose, and it was from the point of view of Dong-yu, who is one of our young boys who is mute for part of his life, a good part of his childhood, and it's because he just doesn't feel the need to talk. So hearing, you know, how he interprets the world and how he interprets his friendship with Jay, who is the other young boy, it was a really beautiful start to the book. And then what happened was section 2, then it started splitting off away from Dong-yu's perspective. There's just like no other good way to describe it, but in part 2 is when they sort of leave their home life, Jay becomes homeless, and there's a lot of child abuse that happens. There's implied gang rape. The rape doesn't happen on the page, but it happens off the page, and I couldn't do it. I was like, I didn't sign up for that when I picked this book up. I wasn't aware that that would happen, and I was like, I just don't have time for this. And then this right here, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, written by Marie Kondo, who is the founder of the KonMari method. You may follow me on Twitter, or you maybe saw during my spring cleaning unhaul. One of my main goals for 2018 is to just get rid of a ton of stuff, just simplify my life, and I wanted to pick up this book because I wanted to know more about the philosophies behind the KonMari method. I wanted a little bit of a how-to. So I rated this book 3 stars. It was an average book. It was a nice little instruction manual. It did get a little bit repetitive on some of the philosophies behind the KonMari method, but if you're fine with that, it's not a bad book. It's a really good starting point. There's some sections that I kind of like made a mental note to go back to of just like how to clear out and declutter certain aspects of your life. But again, it got a little bit repetitive with some of the philosophies behind it. Obviously, this is the author who created it, so she believes firmly in the philosophy that she has created. But for me, I'm just like, I don't feel like I need to follow all the philosophies. I just wanted to know how to do it. So that's why I ended up just rating it 3 stars. It was fine. All right, the next book I want to talk about, this is Truth Witch, written by Susan Dennard. I do have a full spoiler-free and spoilery review of this book already on my channel, so I'll go ahead and link those for you. This is book number 1 of the Witchland series, and I read this as a precursor to Wind Witch, which was nominated for the BookTube SFF Awards as one of the best YA books. This has one of the best female friendships, like centered in a book, YA or adult or otherwise, that I have read in a long time. Like, this has the female friendship that I have been missing in young literature, in fantasy literature for a long time, that I didn't really realize that I had been missing it. These girls are sassy, they're resourceful, they're warriors, they have special powers, like all the things that I would have liked to have. The other thing I appreciated about our 2 young characters, Safi and Isolt, is they're just not your typical young female protagonists who just do things because they're like trying to prove their independence. These girls are are independent, but are still a team with one another. While they may clash with some of the people that they run into, they still come together as a team, and that's always the sole focus of their relationship. And I loved it. I did rate this 3.5 stars, and you'll know in my review if you've watched it, it was because the world building was just a little bit clunky. It was a little bit messy. There were just a lot of things that were just kind of thrown at you with a lot of like information heavy without getting a chance to truly unpackage some of the details. And I've been told that Wind Witch is gonna blow my mind, and that the world building is not as bad in Wind Witch, so I'm pretty excited. I do have that in my April TBR if you've watched that video, but go ahead and watch my review of Truth Witch. You'll know just how much I love it. It's a great story, and I did give this 3.5 stars. On to the 4-star reads now. This is Kings of the Wild, written by Nicholas Ames. I do also have a spoiler-free and spoilery review of this book. I had to switch around my reviews this month because as soon as I finished Kings of the Wild, I had to talk about it. I rated this 4 stars because it was just full of humor and heart. Like, it was fast-paced, lots of action, but it was funny and it was endearing. So this is the story about Clay Cooper, and he's old and retired, and he wants to spend time with his family and his daughter. And what happens is one of his old friends from their younger days comes to his house. He's completely distraught because his daughter has gone missing, and she's in a very dangerous part of the world. The thing about Clay Cooper and his group is they used to be one of the most famous, powerful band of mercenaries that had ever lived. Everybody knows them. They're just living legends. His friend Gabriel wants to get the band back together to be able to rescue his daughter. So it's just super heartwarming. There's just a lot of good humor in here. The action is really, really great. It just like, there's something new that happens in each chapter. I loved it. This was such a fun read. This was one of the books that I read for the BookTube SFF Awards for the Best Debut category. And then the second book, Bloody Rose, comes out later this year, and I am so ready for it. Like, this series was what kickstarted the rest of my March reading for me, because I moved through the other books pretty slowly. After I DNF'd I Hear Your Voice, it took me a long time to get into Truth Witch because the world building was just a little bit sloppy. As soon as I picked this book up, the rest of March completely turned around for me. So this is Kings of the Wild, written by Nicholas Ames. Then the next book that I picked up, this is The City of Brass, written by S.A. Chakraborty. I rated this 4 out of 5 stars as well. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this book, and I'm planning on filming this review for you all as well. I think that's going to be my next review that goes up. I have fallen in love with this whole world. Now, this book is about a young woman named Nari. She has grown up in Cairo. This takes place in 18th century Cairo. And on the sly, she has a little bit of magic in her. She is a con artist. She cons some people, but what happens is she just gets entangled into the world of the jinn. She accidentally releases a power that she didn't know that she was supposed to do, that she wasn't supposed to do. Then she accidentally calls a jinn warrior to her, and then gets embroiled in all of the politics of the world of the jinn, or the Deva. She goes into Devabad, which is the city where the jinn are. Political maneuvering galore, action galore, there's angsty scenes, so there's just a lot of good stuff in here for everybody. When I get to my review, I might talk a little bit about the romance, because it could be considered insta-love. I didn't really consider it to be insta-love, but I could see how people might view it that way. There's also the royal family within Devabad, the royal jinn family, and I thought each of the members of the royal family had very unique takes on life. If you weren't already hooked into the story before, the way this book ended just like ripped my heart out. It just set me up for the next book so completely. That doesn't come out until 2019, and I need it in my hands immediately. I think it'll be a really quick read for a lot of people. I think it'll be a really interesting read for a lot of people. I think if you're a young adult reader primarily, you'll still enjoy this book a lot. The characters are younger in their generation. It just had so much going for it. So this was another 4-star read for me, The City of Brass, written by S.A. Chakraborty. And then the final book that I read for the month of March, this is Cress, written by Marissa Meyer. This is book number 3 in the Lunar Chronicles. I did rate this 4 out of 5 stars. This book picked back up for me. Scarlet was a little bit too hot-headed for me in her book, and then we moved to this book, and I think Cress was just like so wonderfully naive that it just brought like that charming fairy tale side back to the whole story for me. I loved having the whole cast of characters back together. We had Cinder, we had Wolf, we had Thorn, we had Cress, we had Scarlet, we had Dr. Erland. There's so much that gets you ready for the finale. I did get enough of the Rapunzel story in here. I still think, like, as far as like fairy tale retellings go, Cinder did the best job as far as creating a parallel between the original fairy tale. Cress has like just enough pieces of Rapunzel in here, but it's not totally Rapunzel because we're like super in-depth into the storyline of the lunar battles and Prince Kai and all that stuff. Like, we have our storyline at this part, but this was just like sprinkled with just enough Rapunzel that it was really, really fun and interesting. And again, Cress was so sweet. Cress was so sweet. So I ended up rating this 4 out of 5 stars. That wraps up March for me. That was my March wrap up. Like I said, it started off a little bit slow because I was still a little bit hungover from reading Patrick Rothfuss, and then it picked right back up, and now I'm ready to attack April. Tell me how your March reading went. Did you have a slow start? Like, I feel like a lot of people might have had some slower Marches. Just let me know how it went for you. What books were you reading? What did you think of the books that I read? And are you looking forward to my review on The City of Brass? Let me know. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter if you want to find me on my social media accounts. So that's at WhatCastRead. It's the same as this channel, so it's super easy to find. And then you can also find me on Goodreads. That link will always be down below. All right, you know how these videos end. I'll talk to you later. Bye.